Okay, so let's get started with our first competency. Under foundations is demonstrates ethical practice. The definition of demonstrates ethical practice is this: understands and consistently applies coaching ethics and standards of coaching. So you'll notice by this definition that this is more than just following the code of ethics. There are coaching standards that we must all live by, and that's part of this competency. So when we start to dig down a little bit deeper into the markers, marker number 1 is demonstrates personal integrity and honesty in their interactions with clients, sponsors, and relevant stakeholders. So you'll notice here that this is kind of two-part: personal integrity and in the interactions with clients, sponsors, and relevant stakeholders. Some things to recognize here is that these sponsors and relevant stakeholders generally come in when we're looking at corporate environment or some type of business coaching. That may not come into play when you've got individuals who are paying for their own coaching. But it will come into play when you've got companies who are paying on behalf of clients, or companies who have brought you in to work in-house with their people. And so part of the contracting and everything else that comes into play will be not just with the individual you're working with, but often with some organization or department that is sponsoring or paying for your services on behalf of that person. And then also the stakeholders. So for example, if you get brought into an organization to work with staff and maybe they're working on improvements of some sort that the organization has a stake in. So sometimes you'll work with leaders, executives, individuals who maybe are having communication problems. They're great employees, yet they need to learn how to work differently with those around them. So the company will hire a coach, and in that situation, their stakeholder might be their manager. And that's not saying that you would tell the manager what's happening with the client. Of course, that would breach confidentiality. But usually there will be some kind of an alignment, an agreement with them. And so in your interactions with those clients and with the sponsors, stakeholders, you should be demonstrating integrity and honesty. The second marker here is to be sensitive to the client's identity, environment, experiences, values, and beliefs. So the key word here is sensitive, which means that you as a coach have a responsibility to understand that your client and their environment and experiences and what they've lived through and their perspective of the world is different than yours. So while your viewpoints are valid, your experiences of the world are valid, they may be different than the clients, and the clients are valid also. And so we have to be sensitive to the fact that we don't always see things the same way our clients do. And our clients don't always see things the way we do. So there may be times when we just simply don't understand where they're coming from, but that does not forgive us of the fact that we have a responsibility to be open to understanding and accepting their world as it is. And so we also have to be careful not to use language and other interactions with those clients that are going to violate their beliefs and or disprove or invalidate their experiences and perspective of the world. And that brings us to marker number 3, which is using language that's appropriate and respectful to clients, sponsors, and relevant stakeholders. So respectful is the general, how do I communicate in a respectful manner that values and honors the humans I interact with? And that includes your clients, but also the sponsors and stakeholders. Now, many of you may work in a corporate environment and you have a lot of interactions with stakeholders and sponsors, especially if you're internal coaches. So as a part of this code of ethics, you as a credentialed coach with ICF have a responsibility to be respectful and to show up like a coach would show up in those environments and in your interactions with all those individuals. And it also means that you have to use a language that is appropriate and is interpreted as respectful to those clients, sponsors, and stakeholders. Now, you can't always control people's, the way they think and the way they take in your communication, but your communication should be appropriate. So if you're working in a corporate environment, it should be corporate appropriate, professional, and it should take into consideration the I guess, maybe not politically correct, that might be the wrong terminology, but more of a what is acceptable and non-offensive in the general population. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be on guard and monitor every single word you say. It basically does mean, though, that you should not be rude or insensitive or say inflammatory type words or put labels on people or be judgmental. The language that you're using with your clients and in their environment should show respect.